Welcome, everyone. We are happy to have Ayushman from the Hable One joining us this morning for a presentation. And Ayushman, please correct me in the pronunciation of your name?
You could say Ayushman.
Ayushman. Ayushman is going to take it from here. So thank you so much for joining us all the way from
Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Jane, for the introduction. Very excited to be here. Today, I had an opportunity to share the Hable One device or share more about what the device is for. I will be sending out emails just after the call, so you have the latest manuals or the resources you need to do your job in the best way. If there are any questions, you could always reach back to us. Today, we are going to keep it very concise and cover most of the things. Maybe we are not able to go in details into every topic, but we will try to cover the most important topics today. So I'm Ayushman. I live in the Netherlands. I'm from India. And when I moved to the Netherlands, one of the challenges I had was talking to my granddad. He's someone with visual impairment, and I couldn't speak to him on the phone. And that is the primary use case for Hable, was to help him use technology. I think a smartphone for him and for us as well is the best technology out there to connect everybody together. So there was a large population when I came to Netherlands and I did the research that still couldn't use their devices. So Hable is kind of bridging the gap in that way. We focus on two primary things when somebody is interacting with the phone. The first one is entering text or inputting text. That could be entering passwords, writing long messages on social media, or even talking to friends over text. The second area that we focus on is using all the apps. So how could we use all the navigation features of the app? How could we scroll through a different app, open an application, and interact with all the small elements on the phone? So in that respect, we feel that the touchscreen might not be the most accessible part for everybody in the beginning. And we could serve as an introduction for people who are new to using smartphones with their impairments. And later on, while they become more experienced with it and they build mental models, they could then start using the phone alone, if they may. So that's kind of the thing to remember about the Hable is that it works both with an Android phone or iPhone. It works with a tablet. In all those cases, the role of a Hable is like an assistant or a companion to their smart devices, so that they could understand all the aspects to use the technology with their impairments. So my granddad actually did not or couldn't use the screen reader functions. So it's voiceover on the iPhone, and on the Android phones, it's called TalkBack. And that is sometimes the most complicated thing to kind of teach somebody who's new to using their phone without any sight. So they just want to use without the screen itself, and they want to read everything out loud, what's on the phone. This could be a challenging part initially while getting to know how to use a phone. So I'm excited to show you the Hable, and probably some of you have already kind of used it. But if not, then I would be happy to explain all the features of it, how it looks, and then we can deep dive into the functions of it or how to introduce a device. The Hable comes in a box. It's a magnetic box. It's a little, it has a black finish. It has a charging cable inside. The charging cable is meant only for charging. it does not require an update with a wire. It comes with some guides, or it comes with a braille card. Yes, and then card which could point the users to the manuals as well. Apart from that, there's a lanyard strap. The lanyard strap is for using the Hable in the wrist if you're out and about or somebody's traveling. And finally, the Hable One device. It's like a controller. So what you see is a palm-sized controller. Is almost, if you know, the size of an iPhone SE, and it fits into the palm. So it also fits into somebody's jeans pockets or purse, and it's a wireless controller. So it uses the Bluetooth of the telephone or the smartphone, and it can be paired just with the Bluetooth. The Hable has a small charging cable, a USB-C cable at the bottom. On the top, there's a slider function. It's a slider to switch on the Hable and switch it off. The Hable also has 8 keys. The 6 keys are in the middle, which are in the shape of a braille cell, numbered 1 to 6. And then it has 2 bigger keys. The function keys, 7 on the right-hand side and 8 on the left-hand side. So those are 8 keys. And the last thing is it has a haptic feedback or a haptic response. So everything that every action will result into a haptic feedback or a haptic response, letting the user know that the action is complete. It's a battery-powered device, so it needs charging. A single charge for 6 hours would complete the battery to 100%. And then if somebody uses it for 4 hours a day, it would last them for a period of 1 month. So that's how long the battery should last on a Hable. And it's as light as an egg, so around 90 grams or 120 grams. Now, that's about the Hable or the physical descriptions of it. At the back of the Hable is a logo and followed by some label markings and some certification markings. Now, if somebody has to be introduced to the Hable, I think it's nice to know when to introduce a Hable, or when can they just use their smartphone and they do not require a Hable. So there are situations where the user might be really good with their screen or their understanding of using the screen with a smartphone, with a voiceover, so a screen reader technology. And in those cases, the Hable could only play a role maybe for inputting on text, because a lot of times they have 3 options to input text. They could use the on-screen keyboard. They could use a dictation function, so everything that they speak out loud could be translated into text. Or the third option would be Messenger, for example, sending out voice memos, so voice recordings. So out of all the options, when they're sending out long text, it could be that text-to-speech could make a lot of mistakes, or the conversation is too private, for example, passwords that it cannot be said out loud. And in those situations, Hable could provide them a more secure, more private way of typing in their text or their passwords. A lot of times when they're using the product when they're using their phone for work or for professional places, so composing emails or notes, they would like to take notes while they are in a meeting. And those situations, they could also not speak to the phone while they are in that meeting. And those situations also, Hable could be a way to just connect it wirelessly to the phone and take notes while in that meeting. Now, the design of the Hable is quite intentional. It has nice grip on both sides. So how you would hold the Hable is you would use both of your palms, both of your hands. The best way to explain somebody to hold it is to first maybe make a close your hands, like making a namaste almost. So you touch both of your hands, and then if you make a separation, then you can place the Hable on the palms, and then you can roll your fingers in a way that the pointing finger, middle finger, and the ring finger on each of the hands lies on the 6 keys. Once you do that, on the left hand, the topmost key is key number 1. So that's how somebody can understand or learn where the first key would be. And it's important to recognize the keys by the number, because then explaining the functions or how it works becomes much easier. So the left hand, the topmost dot, which is the pointing finger on the left hand, is dot number 1. And then we go downwards from that. So dot 2 would be the middle finger on the left, and the ring finger is dot 3. And then dot 4, 5, and 6 simultaneously is on the right arm, 4, 5, 6 from top to bottom. And those are the 6 keys. Key 7 would be, again, starting on the left-hand side first, with a big, almost like space key, which is there. That is the 8th key, the 7th key, and on the right-hand side is the 8th key. So those are your 8 keys. How do we pair the Hable? The Hable does not require any additional app to work. It's a plug-and-play device. So it does not need any more settings to be changed on the phone, just like you would pair a pair of headphones or any other external keyboard or a Bluetooth keyboard. It can be paired in a similar way. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm using an iPhone SE, and I will switch on the Bluetooth on my phone first. The next step would be switching on the slider on top from the Hable. When I do that, it gives me 2 vibrations indicating that it has woken up. And then I would look for the words Hable One in the Bluetooth settings of my phone. I see the word Hable One. I click on it. It asks me, do I want to pair with this iPhone? As a security check, it's a pair. As soon as I click on pair, the Hable vibrates the 3rd time, indicating that it has paired. The second time connection, let's say I'm done using the Hable, I switch it off to save power, and the next time I want to pair it, if I just wake up the Hable with the slider, the 3rd vibration, so it connects to the last device on its own and does not need to be paired again. So the last device it was connected to, it would pair with it again, do not need to pair. And that's pairing the Hable to the phone. Works very similarly on Android or tablet. I'm just demonstrating it on iPhone. These things are also in our getting started guide. So like I mentioned, I would be sharing the guides right after the call. It has a getting started guide, which explains all these steps in details, both in a Word format and a PDF format, and both for iPhone and Android phone. That was the first part, kind of learning a little bit about the Hable. Who is it for? In what situations can somebody use a Hable? And how do we pair it? There are 3 parts to today's what I want to cover. And then right after that, I would save enough time, like the last 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes for question and answers. I think it's nice to just keep it interactive. There's a second use case for Hable, and that is when we spoke with a lot more people, we realized that often disabilities are not just alone, which means that maybe they're not just not able to use the phone because of their sight, but there could be other challenges that come. And for those individuals, they maybe cannot use both arms to hold the Hable, or using a combination of keys on the Hable could be tricky. And for them, we made a Hable Easy mode. So this is just a software switch or a settings change on the Hable. And what it means is the 8 keys become kind of the remote to the telephone. And for those individuals, it becomes even more easier to operate the phone. And then the Hable can be mounted on a wheelchair device or the bedside. It could be something that they just use to control the phone. I'll also share how to use the Hable Easy in the manual. And it's really for individuals who want to do just the basics on the phone. So their aspirations are not really to become the best in smartphone use, or they're not there for employment, but they would like to use a phone for the basic functions of calling an individual, their family members, or just picking up a phone call, or cutting a phone call. And for them, the Hable is like a remote. So how you would use a remote for a television set. The 8 keys simplify the use and the action, limiting it to just the 8 functions of the phone. So the 8 functions could be going to the home screen. So there's always a dedicated home button. It could be that a lot of individuals use a phone, Android or an iPhone, which misses a physical home button on the phone. So the Hable could be a physical home button. There's one key for going to the next item, the other one going to the previous item. And I'm kind of imagining or taking it as an assumption that most of the individuals, the digital navigators who are in this call, are already aware about screen readers. If not, that is also something we could cover through an email, and I'm happy to guide you more on the topic. But on a screen reader, there's a list view, so you go to the next item and the previous item, and usually that involves some gestures or on the screen. Sometimes these gestures could be hard to explain to somebody when they're new to a screen reader. And then physical buttons are very dedicated keys. It is something that is easier to memorize, and the individuals can just recognize that the left key could be the one that goes to the next item, the right one that goes to the previous item, and a home screen, which is a dedicated. So if they get lost in an app and they do not know where within the app they are, they would like to start again, there's a dedicated home button. There's a dedicated home button. There's a dedicated button for Siri. So usually when we involve individuals in training, so smartphone trainings, we would start with, for example, Messenger or WhatsApp, and we would introduce them basics of maybe sending a message to somebody, and we would say you could do that using Siri. And these are very personalized trainings that we have based on people's technical levels that they're on, and if they've used the voice over the screen before. So there's a dedicated function for Siri, and that could be quite handy when you want to have the small wins, the quick wins for somebody to do just the basics on the phone. So this is more about another mode of the Hable, which is called the Hable Easy mode. And the Hable Easy mode, instead of using complicated braille gestures, which is in the case of Hable One, in the normal mode, Hable Easy would make it easier just to keep it to the basic 8 functions. And with that, you could control the entire phone. So now we're on the last part, the third part, which is I'm going to do a small demonstration of the Hable, and followed by that, I think we can open it up for questions. If you already have questions, please feel to send them in the chat. So it will be quick to go over them. So let's go ahead and pair the Hable again. I just have to switch on Bluetooth on my phone. It was previously paired, so I switch on the Hable. It vibrates 3 times, indicating that it has been paired. Hi, Jane. Please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, first let me tell you that because most of our audience is blind, we're not using the chat as much until the very end for questions. So that's, we want to encourage people just to raise their hand. You're doing a great job. It's a wonderful demonstration. I have a question about the Hable in the easy mode. Is that a completely separate device, or is that just a way to set up the one that we have?
Yeah, thanks for asking me that question, Jane. It's actually the same device, and Hable Easy is a software switch. So it's really just in the settings of the Hable menu, and with that, it just maps the Hable to a different settings. So you do not need another device for it.
Okay, so is there a way to how do you find the settings on the Hable?
I'm also happy to include everything in manual. So we do have a manual, but Hable menu is actually holding and pressing the 6 keys on the Hable. So when you press all 6 keys, it vibrates 4 times very rapidly, indicating that you're in the Hable menu. And inside the Hable menu, you could switch between languages. So the Hable comes in multiple languages. You could switch between a Hable One and a Hable Easy mode. You could learn about the battery status. So the Hable would vibrate 3 times, indicating it's fully charged, 2 times less charge, once is the least charge, and if it doesn't vibrate, it's not charged at all. So that's the easy combination for a Hable menu. Pressing all 6 keys would enter into a Hable.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for your question, and also making me realize and educating me a bit more about the audience, so I can be a bit more deliberate about points I should mention. Like Jane said, we are happy to do the questions. You can just raise your hands, and we can go over each question one by one. Where was I? All right. I had switched on the Bluetooth on the phone, and the Hable, it pairs, and then I'll switch on the voiceover on my iPhone. It could be that the voice is not as clear, or it's a soft voice from my phone. Please bear with me. And then, so usual gesture for going to the next item is swiping to the right. With the Hable, I just need the combination of the 2 keys. So this is a Hable One mode. Hable Easy mode is relatively simple, so it's quite easy to use that. And I would hold 7 key, and I would press the 8 key once. So this is the interaction to go to the next item, and I can keep 7 key pressed, and I hold it, and I press the 8 key just once again.
Navigation folder, 3 apps.
Once
Double
more.
tap, finance folder, 5 apps. Double tap to open.
This is going to the next item. To go to the previous item, I do just the opposite. So I hold down key 8, and I press 7 just once.
Navigation folder, 3 apps. Clock, 15:30. Photography folder, 4 apps. Double tap to open.
This is going to the next on the previous item. To do a double tap or to open an item, I would press 7 and 8 keys together. So I just press 7 and 8 together.
Opening photography folder, photography, heading. Double tap and hold to start edit mode.
Then I can go to the next item.
Camera, FaceTime, photos, Google Photos, photos, FaceTime, camera,
And I can go
double
back,
tap to open,
open an item.
camera,
So that's just the basics of using the Hable.
0 people,
Just to give a little more differentiation on Hable One and Hable Easy. Hable Easy has 8 functions, and that's Hable One has close to 180 functions. So all the functions starting from first item on the screen to the last item on the screen to some complicated functions like rotor items are all built in with a combination. So there's quite a lot that somebody can do. We do not advise to go all the way. However, it's a journey. So we always start with the basics. First item on the screen, last item on the screen, just being able to navigate the phone, holding the H for the H in Braille. So that's dots 1, 2, and 5.
camera,
That will take me to the home screen.
closing photography,
So there's some intuitively built functions inside the Hable. A lot of times, if the level of the participant increases and they would like to interact with the text even more, so correcting text, they can actually use the functions of going back a character, going back a word, selecting a word or a character, copying, pasting. These are some complicated functions that they would have. Somebody has to learn with the screen and the gestures. On the Hable, it always remains that they have the 6 keys to do all the functions. So at a certain point, I feel that we've seen users who would be much quicker in learning. So it's a learning tool. It's much quicker in learning in the process of interacting with their phone and becoming really more digitally savvy or technically sound with what they could do. So that was a very small demonstration about what the Hable could do together with a telephone or a smartphone. I'm happy to jump on another call or answer questions via email, which are specific to a certain app or a certain function. What you could expect from our manuals is they are in 2 formats. There's a accessible PDF format and a docs format. Everything is in a heading 1 and a heading 2, followed by the function itself. So how do we perform the function? For some of the functions, we have made small 30 to 60 seconds video clip. So it's a YouTube video, completely accessible, which just guides a user to how to perform that function. So it makes it a little bit more exciting and interactive. We have tried to include it for a lot of functions, not all. So that is also which is included in a functions map. With that, I think I would like to maybe pause and give the audience an opportunity to ask some of the questions that might be in your mind. So yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ayushman. Jane, are you there?
notifications.
Hi, yes, I am. Yeah, do we, that was a great presentation. It's so amazing how it works. I'm looking forward to playing around with it and trying to get better at it. Does anybody have any questions? Pretty quiet group today.
Tiffany has a question.
I have a question, just to make sure that I've oriented myself properly to the phone. The slide switch is at the top, correct? The
Hi,
top
Tiffany.
on the side.
Yeah. So how somebody would hold the Hable, it's important to make sure that the charging port is facing the ceiling and the slider switch is facing, the other way around. The charging port is facing the floor and the slider switch is facing the ceiling. So yes, and then the 8 keys are facing away from you. So it's almost as if using it in an screen away mode, if somebody uses that. Does this answer your question, Tiffany?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Thanks for your
It
question.
wasn't Tiffany. Tiffany, do you still have a question or you want us to go for the next
Yeah,
person?
yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
That was a great presentation. I've been using the Hable a lot. I know you talked about the vibration patterns for when you turn it on, but I noticed at times when you're writing, there are other vibration patterns, and I'm not sure exactly what they mean or how to interpret them. I know when you write numbers, there are vibration patterns. When you go to new lines sometimes. So I didn't see anything in the manual about what the different vibration patterns mean, except for when you turn it on. So can you expound upon that a little bit, please? Thank you.
Thanks. Was it a question from Tiffany or?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Tiffany. So yeah, so you mentioned it rightly. There's a vibration pattern for switching it on. The vibrations are also there when we are going from a numbers mode to a characters mode and then back to a numbers mode. And those are made by 2 beeps. And then when you have, so it's not mentioned in the manual, I think. It's a good one. Maybe we can mention that. The long presses. So all the long presses that are there are holding the home screen or holding the notifications at the end for notifications. Those all have a beep. So those all of them have a similar pattern on it. When we are switching to a numbers mode, there's 2 beeps. So it's a different pattern for that to indicate that you're in the text field and using a numbers mode or a text mode. But
Okay.
would you want more clear explanation on exactly which vibration would mean what?
That would be helpful, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna note that down and improve the manual so that it covers that part as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Tiffany. Diane, would you please go ahead?
Hi, this is Diane from Blind Shell. I just
Hello.
want to
I know
hey,
you.
how are you?
Doing good.
I just want to say that it's not a question, it's a comment that I love the Hable for practicing Braille. If you have a kid or anybody who's just learning Braille, it's such a fun way to practice your Braille that it really encourages you to keep going with learning it. So I think it's a great device and I love it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Diane. So I actually wasn't sure the audience, so who my audience was, but I think you mentioned it rightly. So that is definitely one of the cases, like a fun tool to practice your Braille. You don't need to know Braille. I think that's one of the parts. You don't need to know any Braille before using the Hable. You could actually just make mistakes and learn on the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. Desmond.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so a comment and a question. So I like also that a lot of the key commands seem to mirror on a refreshable Braille display input. I suspect that was kind of intentional. And so you know, I feel like it'd be a good practice for a transition to type in, say, on a Braille keyboard, the Braille display. So that's pretty cool. Also know that it works with the blind shell. Hello, Diane. And so my question about that, does it use the Android input keyboard layout for the blind shell?
Yes.
Okay,
At least
so Deanne actually tested it and we were exchanging mails back and forth, but I am not certain right now if all the commands work, or is it that most commands work?
I'd say about 90% of the commands work with it.
Okay, because we test the Hebrews, because Android, like there's quite some flavors in the market, so we make sure we test with the Samsung and the Google Pixels. The blind shell you tested with them, but if it works with the 90%, that's already quite far than I would have imagined. That's actually great. Yeah, but I'm happy to cover the other 10% if we could in some way.
Nice. Yeah, thanks.
And thanks for the question or the remark about the refreshable braille displays. Yes, the choice was quite intentional to not make another set of commands that everybody needs to learn again, but we could just follow the guidelines. Like we hate reinventing the wheel again or making a new set of things that already exist. So we wanted to use most of the things that are already there. So the first item on the screen, for example, is the keys 1, 2, and 3, holding them down. The keys 4, 5, and 6 is the last item on the screen, holding them down. But some things like I think with the key 7 and 4, which is going to a character next or back, we had to find a new way of doing that. So it's a mix.
All right, thank you. Jane wants to say something, I guess.
Hi,
Jane?
yes. Yeah, I have a question about, I remember that there was a second model of the Hable and that had more texturized buttons. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that so that those on the call know that that's an option that we can get for people as well.
So we actually just used the texture stickers, which are readily available, and that's for the Hable Easy mode. So a lot of users, when they're going through the computer trainings or the phone trainings, they would like to have something that they could differentiate each key from, because all the keys right now on the Hable would, if they're using the Hable key more like a remote, so that's with a single hand, all the keys might feel the same. So to differentiate the keys, we wanted to use different textures. So we actually used our own stickers. So we made some stickers, but we also realized that there are also readily available stickers that can be put on the Hable to indicate, for example, that the leftmost key is the left arrow key, rightmost the right arrow key, and in the middle of the circle maybe to open an application. It's actually the same Hable. So the Hable is the same unit, but we have modified it in such a way that it has some textured stickers on top of them. So that is definitely an option. If there are Hable Easy users out there who want to use it in that way, and it helps the job, make the job very easier, that is definitely an option.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have it? Is anybody having any question, please? Any question?
I just have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the presentation. This has really encouraged me to look into the manual and get more about the commands and settings. I actually watched you when you were doing the Ad Guys presentation. So I really liked it. I had no idea what the device did until I saw you last week. So thank you so much. It's a great device, and I think you're right about Braille learners can actually benefit tremendously from practicing the Braille with it.
You know, that makes my day to hear such a comment, that you just got to know the device recently and you see the potential. It just reinstates more in our mission and what we want to do further. So thanks for your kind words.
You're welcome.
Well, I guess if we don't have any more questions, that will conclude our session for today. And thank you so much, Ayushman, for coming and telling us all about this. And we'll be in touch with you about a second session in January. So
That sounds
would
great,
be-
Jane. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be
I
great.
think as the digital navigators advance and they get into the more functions of it, I think it's nice to kind of schedule something for a little while, and then see how we could collaborate or talk about some of the things.
That sounds great. Terrific. Okay.
Mhm.
I guess that concludes it for today, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see everybody on Thursday at the usual time from 3 to 4 for our presentation from Division of Rehab, Kendra Hunter Payne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.